Sitting in my marital chair, I never thought that a family supper could cause such a seismic shift. As I clenched my fists on the wheel, I mentally relived the scene, the crash, the stillness. Seeing the expression on my wife's face, my cheeks, were still red from both the sting of the glorious hand and the realization that the lady I wed, the one I believed loved me, had shamefully sided with her mother instead of me. Perhaps it had begun as a typical evening. Malene had insisted we go to her parents' house for dinner, despite my concerns. Gloria had never liked me. From the very first time we met, she made it clear she believed her daughter was settling by marrying me. She had previously said to her husband, "He doesn't come from the kind of family we associate with," hoping I wouldn't hear. I heard. I always heard. But I loved Malene, so I put up with her snarky comments, passive-aggressive remarks, and her cockroach-like gaze. I had infiltrated her home in some way. I persevered through it all because I believed that tonight Malene would be worth it. But I discovered, wow, I was completely mistaken. The meal was in full flow, and the dining area was a jumble of silverware. During Gloria's customary gushing about her idyllic life, I stood up to restock my glass when it happened. I accidentally brushed against Gloria as I turned. It was nothing, hardly a touch, but in her world it was a crime worthy of punishment. Even before I could grasp what was occurring, her hand met my face. A loud slap, painful, public, humiliating. The room dropped into total silence. Every pair of eyes turned to me, the weight of their judgment pressing down like a smothering blanket. My ears rang, my mind scrambled, and I realized Gloria was looking at me, her lips curved in hatred as she spat out words that burned just as much as her slap. "How dare you touch me, you nasty man! Wipe my clothing and get out!" Disgusting. Man, as if I were little more than dirt beneath her boots. I stopped there, frozen. Not because I was terrified, but because my mind refused to believe what had just happened. This wasn't a mistake. She had planned to embarrass me, and worse, she expected me to take it. I glanced at Malene. Surely she would step in, tell her mother she was overreacting. I wasn't asking for much, simply the barest sort of support. The slightest indication that she saw me as her husband and not just some insignificant outsider. But instead, Malene's gaze was empty, cold even. And then she whispered the words that made my stomach plummet. "Apologize to her, or leave." I could have chuckled at how ludicrous that was. Apologize? For what? For existing in Gloria's presence? For standing too near? Thank her for daring to breathe the same air? My lips parted, but no words came out. I scanned Malene's face for something. Remorse, regret, even hesitancy. But there was nothing. Just apathy. That was the instant everything changed. I had spent years bending over backward to prove myself to this family. I tolerated their judgments, their hidden insults, their incessant comparisons to the men they thought Malene should have married. I did it all for her. And in return, when I needed her most, she sided with them without hesitation. I breathed gently, the tightening in my chest making my decision for me. I wasn't going to apologize. I was done playing their game. With a low nod, I turned on my heel and walked out. I didn't slam the door, I didn't argue. I didn't give them the joy of seeing me break. Because I wasn't broken. I was enraged, and beneath that anger was something much colder, much sharper. Resolve. As I stepped outside, the cool night breeze touched my face, cooling the heat still remaining from Gloria's smack. My mind raced, but for the first time, in a long while, it wasn't clouded by the need to satisfy anyone. I saw things with excruciating crystal clarity. They thought I fled in humiliation, that I walked out because I was weak, that they had won. They were wrong. I wasn't leaving in defeat. I was leaving to create a surprise they would never forget. By the time I reached my car, my plan was already forming. They wanted to embarrass me? Fine. But they would soon find that I don't take humiliation lightly. They had spent years gazing down on me, treating me like I was beneath them. Tonight, they had made a mistake that would cost them. I pulled out my phone and contacted the only person I knew would comprehend the weight of what had just happened. Carter. Carter was more than just a friend. He was someone who loved exposing people's filthy secrets. He had pulled me out of tricky situations previously, and I knew that if there was anything worth unearthing about Gloria, he would discover it. The phone barely rang twice before he picked up. "What's up?" he said, his tone casual. "I need you to dig into something for me." "Gloria," I said, my voice steady. Quiet. There was a pause, and then a low chuckle. "Finally ready to fight back?" "More than ready." "Good. Give me a few hours. I'll find something." I finished the call and rested back against the headrest, staring at the sky through the windshield. This wasn't about retribution. It wasn't even about getting even. This was about respect, something I should have demanded a long time ago. I assumed it was just a means to fund her affair expenses. But then I went deeper. Turns out, there's a lot of unaccounted for cash. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. I frowned, going over the documents. "Where's it going?" "That's the fascinating part." Carter tapped the folder. "She's been making significant monthly payments to a private investigator, and not just any PI either. This man specializes in handling discrete issues. People use him for blackmail, intimidation, sometimes worse." I looked up at him. "And you're telling me this because—" Carter's smirk widened. "Because guess who the main focus of her PI's investigation was?" I already knew the answer before he even spoke it. "Me," I mumbled. Carter nodded. "For the past 6 months, she's been having you followed. Your work routine, your money records, even your medical history. Hell, she even obtained access to your old college records." He hesitated, then continued. "She's been hunting for something to use against you." I tightened my jaw, the realization hitting me like a cold slap. Gloria hadn't just despised me. She had been actively trying to ruin me. "Why?" I asked, my voice low. Carter shrugged. "Who knows? Maybe she intended to get rid of you before you could ever stand up to her. Maybe she was just searching for something to control you with. Either way, it backfired. Because now," he tapped the folder again, "now we have something on her." I glanced at the documents, my thoughts racing through the implications. This wasn't just about a poisonous mother-in-law anymore. This was intentional destruction. And I was done being her target. Carter studied me closely. "So, what's the plan?" I inhaled deeply, then exhaled. "We utilize this." He grinned. "That's what I like to hear." Before I could speak, I heard movement behind me. I turned. Malene stood at the bottom of the stairs, pale, shaken. She had heard. Her eyes darted to the file, then to me. "What is this?" I didn't bother disguising it. "Your mother's been paying a private investigator to dig up dirt on me. She's been trying to find a way to destroy my life." Malene blinked, her throat bobbing as she swallowed. That doesn't make sense," I laughed, a bitter, humorless chuckle. "Doesn't it? Because it makes perfect sense to me." I took a step toward her, holding up the file. "This is who your mother is, Malene. The same woman you defended last night. The same woman you chose over me." She shook her head, taking a hesitant step back. "She wouldn't—" "She did." I cut her off. "And I'm done pretending she's simply stern or old-fashioned. She's a manipulative liar who has been attempting to ruin me from the very beginning." Malene's breathing was irregular now. Panic, doubt. "Why would she do this?" she muttered. Breathed slowly. "Because I was never good enough for you. In her eyes. And you know what? Maybe she was right. I stepped back, my voice sinking lower. Because if I had any self-respect, I would have left a long time ago. The words hit her like a smack. Her eyes shone with something unreadable, something frail. For the first time, she appeared small, like a woman realizing she had put her faith in the wrong person. "She's my mother," she muttered, almost to herself. "And I was your husband," I said, voice firm. A tear crept down her face, but she swiftly brushed it away. "Whoa, what are you going to do?" I looked at Carter, then back at her. "What do you think?" Malene's lips trembled. "You're going to destroy her." I didn't affirm or deny it. Instead, I took up the file and slipped it under my arm. "You should go see your father," I said. "He's going to need support." She didn't move. She simply stood there, watching me, understanding that she had lost something. Maybe she still loved me. Maybe part of her had never imagined this would happen. But it did. And now, it was too late. I moved past her, Carter following behind me. As I reached the door, I halted for a moment. Then, without looking back, I whispered the words I never imagined I'd say. "I don't think I love you anymore, Malene." I stepped outside, leaving her alone. In the home she had chosen over me, and this time I wasn't coming back.